There is a hadith of the Holy Prophet with regards to taking care of our fellow human beings. He says that Allah will not be merciful to those who are not merciful to others. So the way that we are with other people, we should expect the same kind of treatment from Allah Ta'ala on the Day of Judgment. Then we should not whine and moan about it. If we are good to other people, if we are kind to other people, if we are humble in our approach, we should expect the same type of reaction to come from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. If we are doing bad deeds to other people, we are treating them like they are nothing, we think of ourselves as superior, then fine. You will expect the same reaction from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala on the Day of Judgment. Now coming to the topic of the rights of women, as I mentioned, that Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world today, and that most of the people who are accepting, the greater majority of them are women. Why is that so? Because Islam gives respect to women. Islam does not believe in objectifying women. That in the name of art and culture, we display our sisters, our mothers, our wives and our daughters as showpieces for billboards, for glossy magazine covers, for advertisements and commercials, and as items of attraction in the markets. This is not Islam. Islam uplifts the women and respects her for who she is inside. Not the outward beauty, but what she is inside. That is how Islam treats women. It has been mentioned to the men first and the women later that lower your gaze and guard your modesty. That we must lower our gaze and guard our modesty. And it goes to the women next, that you too lower your gaze and guard your modesty. Why do we do this? This is done so that we give women their respect and don't start staring at them. We see in the markets now and everywhere, it's very common that people stare at women and they stare for hours on end if they have the chance. Islam tells us not to do this. Don't look at women as if they are objects. Give them respect. Give them respect. Again and again it mentions, give them respect. The Holy Prophet further mentioned that if you look at a woman once, don't deliberately look at her with a bad intention a second time. If you have accidentally looked at a woman, don't deliberately look at her again with a bad intention of staring at her or anything like that. Now at this point it would be also important to give you a worldly example of a man named J.D. Rockefeller. Some of you might have heard about him. He was one of the biggest industrial tycoons back in the 60s and 70s. And he started what was called women's liberation, or women's lib. Now on the surface of it, it sounds like a fantastic idea. Liberating the women. That's what Islam has been talking about all this time. Liberate women, uplift the women. So along comes J.D. Rockefeller Jr. and he says, let me start a women's liberation. Let's liberate these women. And now in 2008 and 2009, his grandchildren have admitted that why this women's lib was started. You can Google it. You can find out that there's been a documentary done on this, that why this women's liberation was started. And the Rockefeller family tells us that it was done purely for two major reasons. Number one, because at that time, women were given the right to vote in the first time back in the late 50s or 60s in the US. And at that time, the only people who were working in the factories owned by Rockefeller, the greatest industrialist there was, this multi-billionaire, only men were working there. He said, let's start women's lib and get all the women to start working in these factories 12 hours a day, long shift. Because I want to increase my production. Islam also gives permission to women to work. We know that the wife of the Holy Prophet, Hazrat Khadija Radhiyallahu anha, was a great businesswoman. But look at the intent behind the Rockefeller's campaign, where he says the first reason is that we want to increase our production. That's why we need women to come into the factories as well. Fine, we have the men, let's get more profits, let's get the big bucks coming in. The second reason was we are taxing the men only. More than half the population is not being taxed. Why? Let's tax them. get them to work, and then tax them. Squeeze the life out of them just for what? For monetary gains. That is the background or the story of women's liberation. The third offshoot of it was to destroy the family structure. Why do that? What's the Rockefeller family got to gain by destroying the family structure? What they have to gain from that is that the mother and father are working long shifts in the factories. They have no time for their children. We start daycare centers, we start state-run schools, which will brainwash the children and tell them that the state is taking care of you, not your parents. The state is taking care of you. So that when you become old and become of their age, put these old men and women into an old people's home. We do not need them. These people cannot work. Put them in the backside somewhere so that we cannot even look at them. Conspired in this way, starting with the women's liberation. It is also unfortunate to know that it is fast becoming a fashion for women to pretend to be unintelligent, to pretend to be dumb, so to speak, especially in the West. Who started this terminology of dumb blonde? People think it's cute, that oh, she's a dumb blonde, that's really cute. And many teenage girls, even now, aspire to be that way, where nothing else matters except your looks. Inside, you can be as hollow as you possibly can be. But outward appearance should be all glitzy and glamorous. That is the level where we have stooped down to. These are our inspirations. Islam makes it compulsory for women to seek an education. It is an absolute obligation on women to seek an education. No other religion tells women to do that. Islam says they must get educated. It is farz on every man and woman to seek an education. And this Islam told us 1400 years ago, where Islam mentioned the rights to education for a woman, her social rights, her financial rights, her inheritance rights, her legal rights, 1400 years ago, which the West only caught up with in the 20th century. Now, having studied all of these rights, it is important to encompass all of these rights by two traits that a Muslim should have. And if he has those traits, it will be easier for him to deal with people in a nice way. The first thing that Islam teaches us is to be cool. Not wearing sunglasses and my cap backwards on and a fancy shirt and baggy pants. Not cool in that way, but be cool inside. Have sabr. Learn to be cool about things. I'll narrate to you the story of the Holy Prophet when he was sitting one time with Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq, and a man came and he started insulting Islam and abusing Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq, and both the Holy Prophet and Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq kept their cool. He said, let him talk, it's okay. And then that man started abusing and cursing the Holy Prophet as well. At which point Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq lost his cool and he got up and he went after the guy. So the Holy Prophet got up and left. And then when Abu Bakr Siddiq asked him later on that why did you leave? The Holy Prophet says that until the time that you did not say anything and until that time that you kept your cool, you were on the way of haqq, the way of the truth, the right way. But the moment you left your cool, your angels left. And I do not sit in a gathering where the angels are not there. So this is the lesson that we should learn, to keep our cool. No matter what happens, keep your cool. Even if the worst thing has happened, have sabr in your heart. Know that whatever is happening, it's according to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I must persevere through this, knowing fully well that if Allah has put me in this sort of trouble, He is the one who will get me out of it as well. Another trait that a Muslim must have is that he must not lie. A man came to the Holy Prophet and he asked the Holy Prophet, "Oh Prophet, if a believer flees in battle, will he still be a believer?" And the Holy Prophet said, yes, he could be. Keeping in mind that he does other things that are alright. Then he asked again that a man who does not give charity, is he a believer? And the Holy Prophet said, yes, he could be. Maybe he doesn't have the means, or maybe he has certain problems, he cannot give charity, so he could be a believer. The third question he asked was that, O Prophet, can a man who lies be a believer? The Prophet said, no.